Greetings, Internet people. Ranting Ramsey here, bringing you another edition of the Rant Request. Excuse me. Today's edition of the Rant Request was brought to me by a member of Team Double Helix by the call sign of Chef Bryson. To the best of my knowledge, he does not have a YouTube channel. If he did, he forgot to tell me what it was. And, or I'm just having horrible memory moments, and I just don't remember what his channel is. I'm sure he'll yell at me, and I'll put it in the description after the fact, if this is the case. But the other reason why I'm choosing to do this today is because when I did my response about the video, Metal is Satanic, one of my watchers said that he wanted to see more rants about music from me, and since this was the only real specific thing that I could nail down, I decided that I was going to go ahead and do that. So we'll get into that in just one quick second. I want to actually thank everyone who has been sending in rant requests, but I do want to actually go ahead and give a little instruction, I guess you can say, is giving me just some really broad topic, like rant about the media. Sorry, Gladfelter. This is the only example I could think of. It kind of doesn't help because it's a very, very broad-ranging subject, and if you haven't noticed, I do my best ranting when I have a specific point to latch onto. It's kind of hard to rant about something in general without seeming like an unreasonable asshole who's just going off about stupid things. You know, you kind of have to have a point. So if you're going to send me a rant request, which I welcome, please, I actually enjoy doing these a lot because sometimes it's actually kind of a pain in the ass to think of something to rant about that's legitimate instead of me just bitching and pissing and moaning. So if you're going to send me one, which I hope you do, kind of make sure there's a fine point on it, so that, you know, I have an actual issue to discuss as opposed to something broad-ranging. So, anyway, now that that's out of the way, you're going to have to excuse me. I didn't get much sleep last night. I'm a little disjointed, and the painkillers for my arm are making me also feel kind of stupid. So, anyway, Chef, in a message over PSN, asked me to do a rant because it kind of pisses him off when people accuse bands of selling out and whatnot. And as some of my watchers have been watching me for a long time know, or anyone who's observant enough to notice the bass guitar in the background, I'm actually an amateur musician. I'm with a project that is on hiatus at the moment, but I've been with it for about 7 years, and we never really went full-on national, but we've done a lot of different things in a lot of different cities and played with a lot of national acts on the same stage. Just to name a few, I've been on the same stage with Fear Factory, and I've been on the same stage with Dope on the same night, so, you know. And there's just Static X. The list just is actually really pretty long. Anyway, so I kind of have some personal perspective on this, and what people who criticize bands who claim they sold out need to realize is that these musicians are trying to make money. Now, there's this thing that goes around in the non-musicianship, the people who just listen to music, who don't actually know how to play any instruments, seem to have this altruistic belief that it should be for the music. You should do it for the love of the music. Well, you know what? If you're independently wealthy, that's fine. That's great. If you have money to fucking burn and just throw away left and right and not have to worry about actually gaining some monetary returns on your investments, then that's just fine. But if you're like most musicians out there, you'd like to make enough money off of your music to not have to do anything else but make music. Most people don't realize that actual album sales don't give the band that much revenue. There's a system called points. There are 100 points on an album. Each point is representative of 1 cent on the dollar. So, if you have a $10 CD, 1 point is worth $1 per sale. Most bands generally don't own any more than 5 or 10 points on their own album. So, if you think about it, they're not making much money off CD sales, which is why a lot of bands now put their songs and whatnot on iTunes, because they get more of a proportion of the sales from that than they do from record sales. Most bands actually make most of their money on t-shirt and merchandise sales, most of the time at concerts. They don't even really get that large for percentage of the concert tickets. Most bands just get a fee to show up, and then the amount of tickets that get sold doesn't reflect how much extra money they get. So when a band makes a choice to alter music style to increase revenues, I, as a musician, can understand this behavior. You know what? If you want to just sit there and make money off of music so that you don't have to do anything else but make music, and you change your style, I understand that. And other people need to understand that too, because as I mentioned, unless you are independently wealthy, which means you have all the money to produce your own albums, to record your own albums, to have all your marketing done, to set up your tours, all this shit, you're going to need someone to do it for you. Most of the times, that is done in the form of a record company. Now, most music listeners don't understand that you don't just get, wow, I just signed with the record company, I'm now rich. In fact, that is the rarest possible case there is. Most times when you sign with the record company, all that money you get is a loan. Like, say, hypothetically speaking, my band were to get signed to a 3-year record contract, and I was going, and they said, okay, 3-year record contract, which means in 3 years, you owe us 2 records. So they give us a 3-year, 2-record contract, where in 3 years' time, we have to put out 2 records, and they will loan us a hypothetical for $1.5 million. That's ridiculous, I know, but still, this is all hypothetical. By the end of that 3 years, we will have had to have paid them back, or in otherwise given them $1.5 million of revenue. And that $1.5 million they gave us was our budget to produce 2 albums in 3 years. That's not just, here's $1.5 million, now tell us what you need to make your albums. No, that $1.5 is your budget. So sometimes, and I'm sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. But so not, what the problem with these budgets that they give you, these fronts, is then most often the record company has a right to say, well, since we're doing this, we're giving you this money and all this shit, we don't want to hear this kind of thing. We want you to aim your music in that direction. And when bands get caught up into this, that's when the fans say they're selling out. But I'm sorry, it's not really selling out so much as making a business decision that is going to keep them making music for the fans they still have. And it's just kind of unfair to just rail against a band and then stop listening to them because, ooh, they sold out. Well, you know what? If they hadn't have made that decision, they wouldn't have had the money to make the music and whatnot. Plus, also, you have to realize that most bands, when they start out, are pretty much at the mercy of the record companies until they save up enough money to start producing themselves, to start paying for their own things without the help of a record company. And that's when you see bands that open their own record labels later on down the roads that gets humongously huge. And the other part of this whole scenario that a lot of people seem to forget is musicians get older. Their musical wants, what they want to do, what they want to play, changes over time. When I was 17 years old, I picked up a bass guitar, and all I wanted to do was learn how to play like Rex from Pantera, or somebody similar like that, or Byron Stroud from Strapping Young Lad and briefly from Fear Factory. That's all I wanted to do was learn how to play like them. But then as I started getting older, I started realizing that some of the music that my parents had me listening to when I was young had way more complicated bass lines and way more interesting things to learn how to do. But I didn't start realizing and thinking like this until I got older, and my tastes and perspectives broadened a little bit. So you have to realize that some of these bands that come out and they just do nothing but heavy blasting ass music because they're 19 years old, as they get older, their musical taste will change and broaden, and they will want to do things that are a little bit more, I guess, for lack of a better word, artistic. Not to say that metal isn't artistic. I love metal music. It's my favorite genre. But you can see the point that I'm making here. So that's basically it. You really shouldn't rail on a band for selling out, because most times it's the only way they can actually survive and keep making music at all, which is what they want to do with their life.